Okay, let's get started with step one. One thing I wanted to show uh, at the beginning of this one was this book. Not sure when this came out. It's big. Uh, it's called the book that started it all, um, and in it has the original working manuscript of Alcoholics Anonymous, and it's pretty neat. So it has kind of these original markups of what Bill wrote, and so just interesting, like what we talked about before with step zero. Um, it says our stories disclosed in a general way, and it says if you are ready to follow directions, started, and then the first 100 thought it'd be better if you put take certain steps. And what's interesting when we talk about the first step is he omitted we, which is we'll talk about, and he just put admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that lives become manageable. That was the only difference with his version of the first step and what the first 100 edited. So interesting book to look at the kind of original writings. And so here's the first step. And one thing that I find very important in looking at the steps is that you only do the parts that are written. And because I believe this is kind of divinely inspired and that they're just perfect in the way they're written. And the way I have always been kind of taught and seen is the 12 steps as a whole are the first three are kind of the foundation and preparation. And then 4 through 9 are the action steps. And then 10 through 12 are the maintenance steps. And if you work 10 through 12 on a daily basis, then you are essentially working all the steps. And then step 3, not necessarily an action step, more of a decision. And then you make good on that third step decision by working steps 4 through 9. So that's kind of an overall concept that I've always kind of liked. But starting with the first one, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. And first, foremost, and why I thought I was interested that it was kind of edited in, is that first most important word of any of the steps is we. Because that's the solution. That's the first in the solution in our design for living is the we. That we leave this kind of self-sufficiency and we come to this kind of this group and get the help from the group, because alone I cannot do this. Alone I cannot overcome this issue. But with the help of others, I absolutely can. And then the other thing I think is important is to look at the way it's written and the tense it's written in, and it says we were powerless. Now, in researching this over a lot of time and really listening to kind of the Joe and Charlie tapes back in a while ago, is that Bill's definition of powerlessness was that I cannot predict, or you cannot predict with any certainty what happens once you take that first drink. So, meaning that once I take a drink, that I'm not a reliable person to predict what's going to happen for the rest of that day or that evening. Now, I may go out and say, okay, these next 5 nights I'm going to have 2 drinks. And I could be right on 4 of those nights. But on that 5th night, I may be so way off that I don't even come close. And that's a problem. Now, the other issue is that I'm not powerless right now. I'm a member of a group. I have a sponsor. I have a support system. I have a relationship with a higher power that I use on a daily basis. I have a tremendous amount of power. And so I'm not powerless over alcohol. I'm not going to leap on alcohol with no reservation if it's put in front of me. So the powerlessness begins once it crosses my lips, but not before. I'm not a victim of this illness. And then the other part is this unmanageability, and that's a very personal issue, because to some, unmanageability may be losing everything. It may be that you've lost a house, a job, a family. But to others, unmanageability may be that you once were able to work a 60-hour work week and take care of your family and have no problem, but now you're just able to work 40 hours a week and you're not as present with your family. But if that's unmanageable to you, that's unmanageable. And that's all that matters. And so that's a very personal decision. The other thing I like about this step is the word admitted. And it's an admission, and the idea of acceptance, I think, can come later. And I think we can look to Bill's first step in the big book, and it's told in Bill's story on page 8 of the book, and he says, no words can tell of the loneliness and despair I found in that bitter morass of self-pity. Quicksand stretched around me in all directions. I'd met my match. I'd been overwhelmed. Alcohol was my master. That's a beautiful first step. That's the first step. That's the admission. Powerless over alcohol. Life unmanageable. That's all it is. It doesn't have to be more complicated than that. Now, what's important is that first step that day would do well to be repeated the next day. To have a reminder, right? This daily reprieve contingent upon our spiritual, the word just left me. It's not contact. Whatever. Man, 51 hits hard. It's crazy. Condition. It's condition. All right, it came. Whatever. That all the drugs I take work. So it would do well to repeat it on a daily basis. This idea that I'm powerless, because I'll forget. That if I drink, I lose my ability to think clearly and to make rational decisions, because I can convince myself that I'm really, really rational, and I can be the most irrational person ever. Really important foundational step. Simple, not easy. It's a huge, huge, huge step, and it's one that it really is important to get right because of how foundational it is. But it's also one I think that people can stall on, because it's kind of it's not the price of admission, because the price of admission is just a desire to stop drinking. That's the only requirement. But it's one that people can stall on because they know that then the next steps come, and the next step has a capital H in it. We all know what that means. That means that we have to think about higher power, and that can be scary. So simple, important, and just, again, divinely inspired, like I think the rest of the steps. So that's step one.